am the president of the Winnetka Neighborhood Council and Lake Balboa board member and chair of Education Committee. On behalf of the Lake Balboa and Winnetka Neighborhood Council, I welcome all of you to this morning and thank you for sharing your Saturday morning with us. This event would have not been possible without the support of our Lake Balboa board members and the Outreach Committee chair. I would like to thank our both candidates, Dan Chang and Scott Schmerelson. Thank you for making time for this important conversation ahead of our November 4th election. I would like to thank our moderator, Rick Schwab, for continuing his commitment to our schools, community, and neighborhood councils. I am going to give you a quick outline to the general structure of our time together. There would be the introduction of our moderator. We will have our candidate statements, which would be 3 minutes a candidate, and the first part of our town hall would consist of pre-submitted content questions to the candidates. Candidates will have 2 minutes per question, and then we will conclude with closing statement from each of our candidates. A close by our moderator, then we will adjourn. Thank you for joining. Let's go and begin. I'm going to open up and welcome our moderator, Mr. Richard Schwab. Thank you for being our moderator, and let's open the session.
Hi, good afternoon, or I should say good morning on a beautiful day. We're here for the debate, and I look forward to working with everybody. We're going to have each of the persons, excuse me one second, just let me get my notes together here. Can you see me or hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Not see you, but hear you.
Okay, hi.
Candidate opening statements.
All right, at the first, I apologize that you're not able to see me in person, but at this time, I'd like each of the candidates to give their opening statements, which is 3 minutes per candidate.
I did actually the coin, and then Chang, you go first.
Well, thank you guys very much. Thank you, Lake Balboa Winnetka Neighborhood Council, for hosting this forum. Really excited to be here. I am a public school teacher. I teach math at Madison Middle School in North Hollywood. Been teaching for 7 years, but I have a 20-year track record of improving schools in Los Angeles. Prior to teaching, I helped open a philanthropy, and we got a free breakfast to every kid in LA Unified. Before getting into education, I actually have experience in the private sector as a financial analyst. So I'm a math teacher, I'm a budget expert, and it is something that is sorely needed on the LA Unified School Board today. I've done a lot in my career. I'm almost 50 years old, but what I really love is teaching. And just a couple of weeks ago, I had a student in my class. He is 4 grade levels below. But when we do our math together in class and we put numbers on the board and I ask for students to get engaged, they step up. And this student raised his hand. He saw the patterns that we were trying to see. And other students took down notes furiously as he was talking, gave him a high five and a dap at the end of the lesson. And that child had a big smile on his face. And it really was the first time that he felt like he belonged in a math class. And seeing that every day is really what inspires me to get involved, what inspired me to become a teacher in the first place. And I love everything I do in the classroom, but everything that happens outside of it really makes me upset sometimes. The downtown bureaucracy inundates the classroom with mandates. The downtown bureaucracy is taking money away from our local schools. And instead of complaining about it, I've decided to try and step out and do something about it to make schools better for everybody in LA Unified, for students, parents, and staff. So that's why I'm excited to run. There are 3 issues that I think we're going to be talking a lot about today: student safety, cutting the downtown bureaucracy, and getting money back to our local schools. And of course, improving our math and reading scores. LA Unified students, barely 60% of them are 60% of them are not reading at grade level. Close to 70% of students are not at grade level in mathematics, and those numbers haven't changed in 20 years. So those are the core issues that we've seen on the campaign trail that I'm excited to talk about. And, we need fresh, new leadership in LA Unified. We don't need more of the same. And I'm excited to have that conversation and speak with all of you about how to move our schools forward. Thank you so much.
Scott?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I am Scott Schmerelson. I came here when I was a kid from Philadelphia, and it sure was cold there. In Los Angeles, I was a Spanish teacher, to the fact that this was my first job and my last job, a Spanish teacher in LAUSD. So I've been a teacher, a counselor, an assistant principal, and a principal, and now a board member in LAUSD and board vice president, as a matter of fact. I do have 50 years of experience, almost all of it at individual schools in Los Angeles Unified School District. I have always looked at my job wherever I was to help students, the individual classrooms of wherever I served. And I never lost that vision that everything needs to be viewed from the bottom up, not the top down. And that's why I'm endorsed by the teachers of the Los Angeles Unified School District, the librarians, the library aides, the nurses, the bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, and the school police, because I look at all things from the bottom up at the school site. So while we're talking about who endorsed me, I want to make it very clear that I am the only candidate in this race endorsed by the Democratic Party of Los Angeles. Let me be clear that all of the Democratic organizations that have endorsed me in this race, all of them, except one, have endorsed me. And I plan to speak to the one which has not. Let me just tell you who else has endorsed me. The teachers of Los Angeles Unified School District, the cafeteria workers, the classroom aides, the nurses, the school police, the Democratic Party, the LA County Federation of Labor, and this organization of 50,000 members called Parents Supporting Teachers. Also, Planned Parenthood is one of my supporters. I just want you to know that school police is so important to me. There is no one in LA Unified who can do better than the school police and our school safety. We have the sheriff, we have LAPD, but no, it's the school police who really know our kids and can help us to make sure safety is my number one concern. Safety and achievement go hand in hand. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, both candidates. Mr. Schwab, the moderator, the floor is yours to start with the questions.
Very good. Thank you very much. Both of you, I have a question that people are very much interested with the election coming forward. What is your position on the facilities bond, and why do you feel that way? So I'd like each of you to identify what your position is on the school bond and why you feel that way. So, and I believe, Mr. Chang, you'll be answering it first. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I am the only candidate that has actually done the numbers and unpacked this bond for what it is, which is at the moment an unnecessary tax increase on every resident in Los Angeles. This bond is premised on the idea that there are $80 billion of unmet needs within LA Unified for facilities. That is not true. $80 billion would be enough to rebuild every single LA Unified school from the ground up, from scratch. So it is premised on an absurd number. LA Unified, by its own enrollment estimates, will be around 300,000 students in just 6 years. That is 40% of its original size. So the district doesn't have an immediate need. It also has $8.7 billion of bond funds that are coming in for facilities over each of the next years. So this bond was completely rushed. That's why members of the Bond Oversight Committee for LA Unified question its purpose as well. I'm the only candidate that's actually done the math, unpacked the numbers, and written about it publicly for all of our constituents. So this bond is rushed. We don't need it right now. There's no immediate need. The district needs to do the sensible thing, which is go back, look at its enrollments numbers, come up with a strategic plan for the schools that it actually needs to serve our population. And then we can come back in 2 years with a bond that is the right size, one that won't increase the tax burden for our population, one that is not rushed by a superintendent and a board who haven't done the basic oversight on the basic math of this bond. We have $8.7 billion coming in. The $80 billion of unmet needs, which is the premise of this bond, is simply not true. It is absurd. And the district, LA Unified, is sitting on a $1 trillion real estate portfolio. This is a shrinking district that will be 40% of its size in just a few years. And the more sensible thing would be to evaluate all the options on the table, such as looking at our real estate portfolio and selling less than 1% of that portfolio to fund our $9 billion if we really need it. So that's my question to, the board and the superintendent is, why haven't we done the analysis of what we actually need? And why wouldn't we consider all options on the table instead of raising taxes on everybody? It's just another cash grab to feed the bureaucracy.
Thank you, Dan. Scott?
Yes, sorry, but I have to disagree with Dan. First of all, there is $80 billion in need for school repairs. I have 105 schools myself in Board District 3, and of course I visit all of them. You cannot imagine the work that is needed in every single one of my schools, including HVAC, including electrical, including plumbing. There are things that must be done to make our schools habitable. Plumbing backups, which cause a dangerous condition with contamination, that has to be done. Lots of plumbing, lots of modernization and technology must be done. Now, those are only my schools. I visit other schools and I go to meetings, and I could see the need is even greater in many other schools that are much older. We have schools that are over 100 years old, including Canoga Park High School, including Van Nuys Elementary School. Beautiful buildings, but the infrastructure is falling apart. We do have that need. We have done the research. We have done that. The need is there. We have every dollar already committed to restructuring our schools, for remodernization of our schools, and this is an important thing. When our schools start looking shabby, the neighborhood looks shabby, and people who even don't have children at LAUSD schools want to make sure that their neighborhood school is up to date and looks good for their own real estate value purposes. But we need that money, absolutely so, and it has been investigated and researched and checked. So I thank you.
Thank you both. Richard? Yeah. Richard? I can go ahead and ask the question. Richard?
Okay, why don't you? I'm disconnecting here. I apologize.
Let me go ahead and ask question number 2. What is your position on Proposition 2, the state facilities bond, and why do you feel that way? Scott, your turn.
I absolutely support, again, Proposition 2, the state facility bond. The amount needed at our schools is just unbelievable. You have to actually go to a school and see the needs. You have to talk to the principals, to the custodians, to the teachers, and see every single room, the needs that are there. We need this money. We need this money to repair our schools and bring it up to the 21st century. It is very sad to go when you see schools with electricity needs, or they can't even use all the plugs in the room because of blowouts of the circuit breakers. We need this work and we need this money done. Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Dan?
You know, LA Unified, there's not a single person on the LA Unified School Board that has budget experience. There's not a single candidate running that has budget experience except for me. I have an MBA. I've done this in my life. And again, I support Prop 2. It would actually be $700 million for LA Unified. It is a $10 billion construction bond for the entire state of California. And you know, it just goes back to the fundamental missing ingredient on this LA Unified School Board. There is not a single person with budget expertise. And so they've rubber stamped, and Scott has rubber stamped and takes everything that he's been told by the superintendent and the staff and the bureaucracy and the facilities division about what the needs are. And they're simply just not true. Again, $80 billion is enough to demolish and raise and rebuild every single LA Unified school from scratch, 600,000 classroom seats for a district that will only have 300,000 students. So the number just doesn't add up. And the school board desperately needs someone with financial experience, with a math background, to dig in on behalf of the taxpayer, to find out what's really needed and what isn't. You know, I think that without question, you know, this school board oversees an $18 billion budget, and there isn't even a finance or budget committee that's operating and functional on this board. It's one of the first things I'll do is start the finance committee again. I'm on the board of I've been on the board of nonprofits, and every nonprofit that I'm aware of generally has a finance committee, but not the LA Unified School Board, which oversees $18 billion a year on behalf of the taxpayer. So I'm excited to bring that financial accountability back. I'm excited to bring my expertise and my background and really put it to use for the taxpayers and the constituents of Board District 3. We need that representation. The city of LA needs it. And I'm the only candidate that has it.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go to another question. Given, Richard, you would like to go ahead with question number 5? Okay, let me go ahead. Given the revelation that LUSD is not required to show a role-carrying teacher to preserve a classroom, do you still believe that LUSD should continue to give charter classrooms in the same way as in the past? Dan?
Yeah, LA Unified, absolutely, as a public agency, its job is to provide facilities for every public school. And that's what I believe in. Sharing is caring. LA Unified is big enough for all of our public schools. We have 600,000 classroom seats available. We have 409,000 students in LA Unified, so there's plenty of space. And we have $8.7 billion of facilities money coming in on top of a state bond that will bring another $700 million. So we've got the resources, we got the classroom space. I'm excited as a school board member to make that space available and share it equitably amongst all of our public school families and all of our public schools.
Recording in progress.
Create a false divide that pits public school against other public schools teachers against other public school teachers, public school families against other public school families. That's not the kind of leader I am. I'm proactive. I bring solutions. And I would just say that stands in very stark contrast to my opponent, who has actually led protests at schools, at the homes of public school principals, like literally leading with divisive rhetoric, calling people invaders and creating a false issue. And it's really sad that our elected officials aren't actually offering solutions, but instead stoking divisions between public school families. So I stand for the opposite of that.
Thank you, Dan. Scott?
Yes, let me just say that up to this year, we have all been bamboozled by the charter school industry about what classroom space could be used in a school. I was just shocked, as my other board members were, to learn that you don't have to have a room with a roster carrying teacher in order to preserve that room. For example, we have rooms that are now used for IEP meetings, for teacher meetings, for after-school activities. And up to now, you could not use those rooms because they were free to take for the charter school coming into the Prop 39 position. So let me just tell you that I was just shocked that we had to have children leave the school. And I'll give you an example, and that's Trinity Street Elementary School. It's not in my district, but all schools matter to me. And we had children who had to actually lose their school in a grade level and move to another school in order to give room for a charter school to come in to their home school. Lots of problems, decisions. Who's going to use the gym at what time? Who's going to use the auditorium at what time? What entrance are people going to use? This divisiveness is really, really, really troubling. It has lots of negative impact on both the charter school students and the public school students. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea to have to share schools in that way. Lots of problems, lots of disagreements. And I believe in charter schools. I believe they should have their own funding and their own schools. And it's a great thing to have. But to invade, I'm telling you, invade a school that has these problems and causing more problems among the faculty, among the parents, and among the staff. It's not a good idea. Not a good idea.
I'd like to provide a rebuttal if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, are you done, Scott?
I'm finished, yes.
Go ahead for a rebuttal for 1 minute, please.
Yeah, it's the district that created all the rules to share space. So the fact that Scott is surprised and he's blaming it on someone else shocks me because he approved all the rules and it's LA Unified that creates those rules. So, him doing what a typical politician does, which is pass the blame on to someone else and try to hide the facts. It's classic of what you do when you don't take leadership and you don't have solutions. So one, he's blaming the wrong party. He should be shocked at LA Unified for creating those rules, and he had a part in approving all of those. So blaming other people is what politicians do. And I'll just bring up another thing, he talks specifically about Trinity Elementary School. What people don't realize is LA Unified, in addition to the $9 billion of bond funds they still have coming in, has a $37 billion bond fund that's been going on, bond building program that's been going on for 25 years. They built 2 elementary schools right next to each other. Trinity Elementary School is under-enrolled because it is across the street from another LA Unified elementary school that is also under-enrolled. And so a lot of the crisis that he talks about is actually based on LA Unified's poor use of bond funds. And so now they're coming back and asking us for another $9 billion for an $80 billion unmet need when they are building their own elementary schools and cannibalizing enrollment because they put 2 elementary schools across the street from each other. I mean, typical politician saying that they need more money for bureaucracy that can't manage the money they've already increased our taxes for. Classic.
Thank you.
Yaron, may I respond to
Please,
Dan?
your last rebuttal.
Yeah, sure. So Dan, first of all, you'll get to realize one day that schools are very important to the people who attend those schools. They feel for their schools. It's their school. I don't care how many schools are across the street from Trinity Elementary School. Trinity Elementary School belongs to the people who live in that district, and they feel humiliated and disgraced when they have to leave their school to go to another school because a charter school is there. Number one.
Because LA Unified opened another elementary school across the street from Trinity.
Let him continue. Let him please continue. Continue, please.
Sure. Number two, in case you didn't know this, Dan, I am not a politician. I am not a politician. Yeah, you could look at me like that. I am not a politician. I am an elected official. Politics doesn't mean to me anything. I stand for the kids. That's a second thing I wanted to point out to you. And the third thing, we should know better about Prop 39. Well, when you've been lied to year after year after year, what are you supposed to do? You take it as the truth. And it's a shame. It's a shame that we have been lied to for so many years by somebody at LAUSD who is a former charter school person. And he is the one who lied to all of our board members, and that is a shame. That is a shame. Thank you, Miran.
Thank you, both of you. Let's
Sure.
move forward. What would you do about charter schools that fail to deliver improved results? Dan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think charter schools are highly accountable. They're very innovative. And the fundamental idea behind charter schools is that in exchange for freedom, we expect greater performance, right? And that is the compact that charter schools are organized under. That's how they are held accountable. That is how we as a public school system hold them accountable and regulate them. Charter schools that don't hold up their end of the bargain, of course, they should be given support to improve, and if necessary, they should be shut down. No one wants a bad charter school out there. And so that fundamental framework works. I support it. I think it's what's unique and what makes charter schools very successful is that they're highly accountable. And so I support that. And I'll just take maybe a minute of my time to say that, you know, Scott says that he's not a politician, but I would say that is in essence what he is. He has not been a classroom teacher for 43 years. And in that time, he's actually become a consummate politician. And you'll see it in how he addresses all of us today, how he's going to hide about his record, how he's going to hide behind all these endorsements, how he won't answer simple, direct questions. And you'll even hear it in how he talks, how he oddly uses the word my a lot. My schools, I visit my schools. It's very possessive, almost like he thinks he's the mayor since he's been in office for 9 years and he hasn't been in the classroom for 43. So as this debate goes on and as we answer more questions, I think those are the three things that you should, you know, I'll be listening for, but I hope people will see that, you know, it's time for a change. You know, a classroom teacher who's actually teaching now versus someone who hasn't been in the classroom for 43 years. It's important, and having that fresh experience really matters. So excited to answer the next set of questions.
Thank you, Dan. Scott?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I take my time on the board and my experience as something positive, not something negative, first of all, number one. Number two, I say my schools because I feel they are my schools. Board District 3 are my schools. I am responsible to my constituents. I am responsible to the students. I take responsibility for my schools. I say it all the time. But yet again, all the schools are important to me. And that's why I brought up Trinity Elementary School. I read everything that's happening in all my schools across the district. And then talking about hiding things, you realize that your organization has closed down, I don't know, 6 or 8 charter schools. But one thing that the public does not know is all the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are poured in from the state to open your charter schools are never returned back to the state. You keep them. $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 given as startups for your charter schools. You close them, people lose their jobs, they go right to the unemployment line, and your organization keeps all those hundreds of thousands of dollars of startup money that you receive. So people don't know that either. So we should be upfront with everything that we do. Okay.
That's because
thank you, Miran.
You want to do a rebuttal?
No one, all these startup funds go into facilities and salaries, so they're spent. So there's no accrual of any additional funds. They're all spent on behalf of public schools and behind, you know, for salaries and for students. And I think that's the fundamental lie that is being pushed out by Scott and his powerful backers, right? It's this idea that there is a corporate industry out there in public schools that are making money from schools. And so Scott just said it right now. And let me just disabuse everybody of this notion. And I would ask Scott to address this question directly as well. We all know in the state of California, there is no single for-profit charter school in existence. Privatization does not exist in the way that you guys are saying, you and your backers, right? That has not been in existence in the state of California. There's a law against it. It is an outright lie. Charter schools are charities. They are public schools, and they are deserving of the same respect as every other public school out there. So I'm done with the divisiveness, right? Parents are done with it. They know that LA Unified is big enough for everybody, and that's how I'm going to lead. So I would just ask Scott to respond. Does he actually know that there are no single for-profit charter schools anywhere in the state of California, or does he just want to continually mislead the public about that?
Scott, would you like to rebuttal before we move forward?
Sure.
50
Yes,
seconds.
I would. And thank you. Yeah, I'll be real fast. I talked in the beginning about who supports me, and I don't know these gigantic organizations that support me. I'm talking about just regular people like school police and teachers and nurses. And Dan, do people know that a billionaire from Utah has financed your whole campaign? $5 million dropped onto your campaign from an outsider from Utah. What on earth does he have to do with LA City Schools? A billionaire from Utah, not mentioning names, but a billionaire from Utah who dropped all the funding for your campaign. Thank you, Miran.
Thank you.
I feel like I should be able to respond to that.
One last time.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the grassroots campaign that I've built. I have literally 500 individual donors that have supported my campaign from the primary on. And I would love to compare and contrast my supporters versus Scott's. Scott, if you look at his contributions, the majority of Scott's contributions don't actually come from actual real life people. They come from special interest groups that are part of the bureaucracy. Like, he does not have a people-powered grassroots campaign. He's going to claim all these endorsements and say all these political things. But at the end of the day, Scott's campaign is majority financed, not by people. It's financed by an alphabet soup of organizations that make money off of LA Unified and that are part of the bureaucracy that he's been a part of for over 50 years. So it really begs the question, and we'll see it as we talk through the record, that he's going to hide his actual record from you, right? And we'll see, like, whose interests is Scott really serving, because he doesn't have contributions from real individual people. It's the minority of his campaign. The majority, over 50%, like 57% of Scott's funding doesn't come from actual people, comes from special interest groups. And contrast that to my campaign, which is completely the opposite. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of grassroots donor, and I'm proud of the campaign that I've run and the actual people that support me, as in contrast to Scott, who is he's become, in the 43 years that he has not been in the classroom, he's just become a consummate politician.
Thank you.
Let me just finish, Miran, and this will be the end. We'll put it to bed.
This is the last time. Go ahead.
We'll put it to bed, of course. I find it laughable that Dan refuses to recognize that a billionaire in Utah has funded his campaign with $5 million. He must think we're stupid. I don't understand this. And I, with the $5, $25 contributions from teachers and all the other organizations that come to me, I cannot believe that he will not acknowledge a gentleman in Utah dumping $5 million on this campaign. It's unheard of, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is proud of every single one of the donors.
Thank you. Let's move forward.
Okay.
Are there any parts of Project 2025 that you agree with? Go ahead, Dan.
No.
Okay.
I am the only lifelong Democrat in this race. And I'll ask Scott a very simple question. Who did you vote for in the closed Republican primary of 2016? He's been a lifelong Republican who only changed his party designation in 2019. I have no idea about Project 2025. Somehow his powerful backers want to try and saddle me and put out all this mud. But I'm the only lifelong Democrat, and Scott is a lifelong Republican.
Thank you. Scott?
My answer is no. I am not aware of anything about the 2025 plan, and I am the only
Endorsed by blah,
Democrat.
blah,
Let
blah, blah.
him talk.
Who did you
But
vote for in
please,
2016 in the
let
closed
him vote.
Republican primary, Scott?
Correct. Let him
Who?
talk the question. There is
Tell
a
any-
question on the floor.
Answer a
There-
simple question.
But then there is a question on the floor. Please answer the question.
I will. I
Yeah.
will. And I am the only Democrat supported by the California Democratic Party, period. Thank you, Miran.
Okay, so before we move forward, I like to make a very clear rule. When there is a question, please answer the question and please show your professionalism so we can have talk more about it. I am going to move to another question, which is parents who have children with special education needs are told they are equal partners during the IEP process. How would you ensure their voices are heard? Scott.
Yes, I think you know that this is my continuing term as the chair of the Special Ed Committee at LA Unified School District. I am heavily involved in our special ed program at the schools. I am working with parents all the time to make sure that they get a fair shake at the IEP meetings. I tell my parents all the time, don't you ever go to an IEP meeting with a pre-written IEP plan. The IEP plan is developed at the meeting. At the meeting, services are available for our children. We have to make sure that we have the correct number of BIIs, which are special education aids in the classroom. I am a big supporter of special ed, but I'm also a big supporter of inclusion. And inclusion, for those who may not know, means that for 1 or 2 periods, or maybe the whole day eventually, students in special ed go into the general ed classroom where they can progress and succeed. But you just cannot put a student of special ed needs into a general ed classroom without the proper supports. And that is the combination of speaking to teachers on both sides to make sure they understand what the plans are in that classroom and the support that goes with that student to the gen ed classroom. It's not fair to the special ed kid. It's not fair to the gen ed kids in that classroom. It's not fair to either teachers. Special ed is the heart of my philosophy about making sure that all kids are educated fairly. Parents need to be aware of the rules and regulations and the rights that they have as parents of special ed kids.
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you. Thank you, Miran.
Dan?
Yeah, the special ed process, getting an IEP can be incredibly taxing for parents. It's can be very confusing. One of the things I've noticed, having participated in many IEP meetings as a teacher, is that we don't meet parents where they are. They don't have enough information coming into the meeting. The meetings are scheduled sometimes in ways that are just very inaccessible for the parents. And they just don't know enough about how to best support their student and how to best navigate the process. So we need to make it more accessible for our parents. We need to provide more information up front, and we really need to provide a level of support for our parents so they can really access all the support, all the services that their children could be eligible. The district has this history of denying services and taking advantage of the fact that parents don't know what's available. So we need to reverse that, because so much support is needed for our special needs student population. The district is deliberately making it difficult and cumbersome for parents to access it, fighting them tooth and nail for every service that their students rightfully deserve. So as a school board member, my office will be wide open, helping parents navigate that process and advocating for them to get everything that their students deserve and not come back in tears because of how they were treated in this IEP process.
Thank you. Last year, the primary promise program was eliminated after the district had previously provided evidence that it was successful. Do you agree with this decision? Scott, you're first.
Yes, the primary promise system worked very, very well The problem was that it was funded mostly with ESSER funding, and that funding was gone. And we had to work a way in order to keep this program alive with other funding. We now have a different type of funding, and we even reached down into the middle and high school for this primary promise. I've witnessed the program. It's working. Our scores are up. And when money is not there, you have to make do with what you can. But we made the switch. We made the switch to this new program, and it is working well. It is working. I visit the classrooms. I see the teachers who were formerly primary promise teachers who are now in this new intervention program, and it is working well, and the kids are achieving. And that's important. Thank you,
Scott.
Mira.
Dan?
Yeah, I'll be watching very carefully how our reading scores and how our math scores progress, because what's been very clear to me as I observe the board and watch this superintendent is the superintendent and the staff are very active in dissembling and not being fully truthful with the school board and with the public. And whether it is primary promise, whether there's a Prop 28 arts funding that was misappropriated, whether it's the attendance fraud that happens in LA Unified, whether it is the bond that we spend a lot of time talking about. So what I would say is this: the superintendent said that they would produce a program that is as effective, if not more effective, than primary promise. And I'm waiting to see the data that actually shows that, because if the superintendent can't produce that, then he needs to be held accountable for it. And a 1.5% increase in scores, which is what LA Unified got in its last round of reading scores, is not enough. That is not the progress that our students need when 60% of them almost cannot read at grade level, when 70% of kids nearly cannot do math at grade level, and that those numbers have been stagnant for 20 years. It's evident that we need new leadership. It's evident that we need leadership that will hold the superintendent accountable for these types of decisions. And that's the type of leadership that I will bring.
Thank you. Despite the many questions surrounding the implementation of Prop 28, 5 of the 7 LAUSD board members voted to approve the annual report on Prop 28 on June 24. Can the voters trust you to ensure that arts education is funded according to the promises made to voters when they passed the proposition? Well, Dan would like to go first.
Yeah, absolutely. The voters cannot trust Scott with Prop 28 arts funding. We have all the information that we need right now. The superintendent sent out a memo in August listing all of the funds that were supposed to be given to our elementary schools in the 24 school year for arts funding, and every single elementary school had its TSP arts funds taken away in contravention of the Prop 28 law. The data is there. I am the only person that has been advocating for the superintendent to backfill the TSP art funds to make our elementary schools whole for the $30 million of arts funding that was illegally taken away and siphoned back to the LA Unified central office. Scott's answer to that question is he asked the superintendent to do an audit. There is no need for an audit. The audit is done. We have the data. We clearly see the missing funds. All that's left is to take action and to have the superintendent restore the $30 million. Scott went so far as to say he was proud of the superintendent for not fixing the problem at the last board meeting where they discussed Prop 28. It is clear evidence that Scott is completely asleep at the wheel when it comes to oversight, and he doesn't have a handle on the budget, and that we need someone that does understand budgets and can actually have a conversation with the superintendent and hold him accountable instead of being snowed over. This has gone on far too long. This money should have been returned months ago, but Scott is going to hide behind an audit. He's going to hide behind a conversation that he thinks he had with the superintendent, and yet nothing has been done.
Thank you. Scott?
Yes, thank you, Miran. Number one, Scott is the board member who voted not to approve the budget for Prop 28 because I wasn't convinced that the money went correctly to the schools, both elementary and secondary schools. That's true. Another truth is Scott has demanded an audit, which is taking place right now, to make sure that things have been done in the correct way. The superintendent is responsible for this, and he will show us whether or not he complied or did not comply. And if he did not comply, there's going to be a very big problem with the board members, including me and the superintendent. I just want you to know that in this audit, people will see that the funding also depended on whether or not the school lost enrollment or not. It's a per pupil funding. Okay. They'll also see if a school was mostly Title I, which is a program where about 85% of the children are below the poverty level. That school receives more funds than a school that is not Title I. There are a lot of factors involved into the funding. It's very, very complicated. And that's why this audit will point out school by school how much money they received and if it was properly done. And we will see. And I really hope that the audit will show that we're doing it fairly and honestly. And that was to come.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just provide a quick 1-minute rebuttal. I mean, Scott, he started by saying, hey, I've got all this experience, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what's the point of experience if you don't actually know what it is you're talking about? The TSP arts funding that was provided to every elementary school in the 24 school year is not dependent on Title I. It is not dependent on enrollment the way that he is saying, actually, because the issues that happened and what the superintendent did happened at Title I schools and it happened in non-Title I schools equally. The money was completely taken away. The second thing is the money was actually allocated based on itinerant arts teacher positions, and it was not tied directly to the enrollment of those schools. So, if Scott has been on the board for 9 years and says he knows, certain things and he wants to bring up these facts, then his facts should be accurate and correct, but they're actually not.
Thank you.
Scott, let me just
20
say,
seconds.
Yeah, Miran, let me just say real quickly, my facts are up to date and accurate. I'm talking about Prop 28. Absolutely, yes. And it's amazing how
what was taken away, but was allocated by the state. Like, that's the confusion. Like,
let him continue. Let him continue, please. Let him continue. We are getting very close.
Yeah. I just find it amazing how Dan's main purpose in this debate is to attack and attack and attack. I just find it amazing, just amazing that they're all attacks and no proof. But thank you, Miran. Go on.
Thank you. I have a special question to both of you. There have been complaints from all three parents' committees, CAC, DLAC, PAC, that district staff interfere with their ability to provide unedited advice to the board. How would you ensure the independence of these state-mandated committees? Scott, you can go first.
Thank you. Yes, I've been meeting with our committees, the DLAC and the PAC. In fact, I meet with them online after school time to find out what their concerns and what their problems are. The problem is that we have to realize that these are our parents in a committee that's authorized by LAUSD to action, and they have to prove to us that they are committed to by reviewing the district statements that are being made. Lots of concerns about the funding program and how schools are funded. They have lots of very, very good information. One of the things I'm working on is making sure that, first of all, that these documents are translated into Spanish for many of our parents who do not understand English well enough to be able to understand what's going on in the committee. That's number one. Number two, we have to make sure that there is recognition, respect, and understanding that they are working as volunteers. And I think we have to do a much better job of making sure that their involvement in these programs is evident. And I do work with them all the time, and I bring up to the superintendent the idea of respect and understanding that this research that they do and the representation of the parents of which they are is extremely important. I continue to work with them.
Thank you, Scott. Dan?
Yeah. So my board office will have an open door. We will solicit and include parents directly as partners in everything we do. We'll take advantage and we'll expand all of these, the ELAC, the DLAC, the different parent advisory committees that we have in LA Unified. We'd look to actually make them a little more regional in nature. So it is easier for parents to actually get there. They don't all have to come downtown at a prescribed hour. And of course, their feedback should not be edited or synthesized by people in the bureaucracy before it gets to decision makers at the board level. Like, we should be acting directly on the information we get from parents. And as a board member, I'll break down the structures to make sure that happens.
Thank you.
We agree. We agree. We agree, Dan.
Thank you. This was my last questions. So I'm going to give the chance for you to do the closing statement. Dan, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for this time. You know, one of the most famous mathematicians, Albert Einstein, said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that is the election that we have here in LA Unified. We have a chance to make change in the district, to bring parents, teachers, students, families together with new ideas, fresh leadership. And I'm a person that has made change at every level of the school district. I make change in the classroom today, changing kids' minds about themselves, about math, and about their futures. I've made change at the school level. I helped turn around the most troubled high school in LA Unified, a school called Locke High School in Watts. I've made change at the district level. I helped open a nonprofit that helped get free breakfast to every kid in LA Unified. And the district is in sore need of change. The bureaucracy is huge. It is getting bigger. They're asking us for more money to build a more oppressive agency that is just filling our classrooms in our schools with top-down mandates. So to have the school system that we really need, to get rid of the divisiveness, we don't need another politician who's had 9 years in office. We don't need someone who hasn't been in an LA Unified classroom in 43 years. We need a math teacher, a budget expert, an LA Unified parent to be on this school board, to give us all the representation we really deserve. My name is Dan Chang. I am a public school teacher. I'm a budget expert, and I hope I have your support for Board District 3. Vote by November 5th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Scott, your closing statement, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in my classrooms every single day, not 43 years ago. Every single day I'm in the classroom and I see what's happening. And I do have 50 years of experience, almost all of it in individual schools in Los Angeles and the Unified School District of Los Angeles. I have seen this district grow and shrink over time. And I have watched citizens get thrown out of their homes through eminent domain, which is just horrible, just horrible. Yet my opponent would sell the properties that are currently underused. You have so little faith in our city. I remember the Olympics of 1984. I was a teacher at Virgil Middle School. I remember how our city was revitalized by that event. I think we're about to see the same thing coming up. Like so many other parts of Los Angeles, we need to invest in our kids and in our city. And I have great hopes for our city. I feel it's my duty to use my experience to help shape how our new schools will work in the future. And this is why I'm so in favor of our community schools model, which provides wraparound services in a single location, our local schools. And I come from a time when the local school was the center of the neighborhood. And that's my vision about how schools should work. I'm endorsed by the Democratic Party of Los Angeles and all of the Democratic clubs who have endorsed in this race, except one. I am endorsed by Planned Parenthood, Parents Supporting Teachers, Moms for Gun Safety, and the Los Angeles Times newspaper. I'm endorsed by the teachers of Los Angeles, the service workers of Los Angeles, the school police of Los Angeles, the Los Angeles police officers, and the Los Angeles deputy sheriff, and school nurses too. So my opponent seems to be, again, supported by one guy, a billionaire living in Park City, Utah, who has donated over $4 million. All of those flyers that are choking your mailbox, and mine too, by the way, are from that same one guy. All of them from one guy. Look at the bottom of the flyer, you'll see his name. The flyers you're getting supporting me are from tens of thousands of teachers, service workers, members of the Democratic Party, and more. And who do you want to stand with, really? Thousands upon thousands of workers, parents, and community members stand with me. A billionaire stands with Dan. That's your, oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. I was very involved. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. I would like to say, first of all, before I close today, allow me to thank both the candidates who made the Saturday. They both made their statement, but I like also have few acknowledgement. I have to acknowledge the two best outreach chair, Ronnie Frost, Peggy White, and also our education advocate, Danica Milton, David Tubersacks. I would like also to say thank you to our both neighborhood council, Winnetka and Lake Balboa, working collaboratively to bringing such successful candidate forum. I would like also to say thank you to all the advocates, to all the parents, to stakeholders who took their Saturday in order to be here. Thank you all, and I wish you all the best and wish you a great weekend to all of you.
Thank you, Miran. Thank you.
Thank you, Lake Balboa, Winnetka Neighborhood Council. Appreciate you guys doing the heavy lift to put this together and give people the information they need.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you.